Was it possible for anyone to hide behind the tombstones? No, monsieur. They were quite small. Poor tombstones, partly hidden under the snow, with their crosses just above the level of the ground. And the only shadows were those of the crosses and ourselves. The church stood out quite brightly. I never saw so clear church stood out quite so brightly. I never saw so clear a night. It was very fine and very cold, and one could see everything. Are you at all superstitious? No, monsieur. I am a practicing Catholic. In what condition of your mind were you? Very healthy and peaceful, I assure you. Millie Daae's curious actions in going out at that hour had me worried at first. But as soon as I saw her go to the churchyard, I thought that she meant to fulfill some prowess duty on her father's grave. And I considered this so natural that I recovered all my calmness. I was only surprised that she had not heard me walking behind her, for my footsteps were quite audible in the hard snow. But she must have been taken up with her intentions, and I resolved not to disturb her. She knelt down by her father's grave, made the sign of the cross, and began to pray. At that moment it struck midnight. At the last stroke I saw Millie Daae lift her head, her eyes to the sky, and stretch out her arms, as though in ecstasy. I was wondering what the reason could be, when I myself raised my head, and everything within me seemed drawn toward the invisible, which was playing the most perfect music. Christine and I knew that music. We had heard it as children, but it had never been executed with such divine art, even by M. Daae. I remember all that Christine had told me of the angel of music. The air was the resurrection of Lazarus, which old Mr. Daae used to play to us in his hours of melancholy and of faith. If Christine's angel had existed, he could not have played better. That night on the late musician's violin, when the music stopped, I seemed to hear a noise from the skulls in the heaps of bones. It was as though they were clunking. I could not help shuddering. Did it not occur to you that the musician might be hidden behind the very heaps of bones? It was the one thought that did occur to me, monsieur. So much so that I omitted to follow Millie Daae. And when she stood up and walked slowly to the gate, she was so absorbed just then that I am not surprised that she did not see me. And what happened that you were found in the morning lying half dead on the steps of the high altar? First a skull rolled to my feet, then another. It was as if I were the mark of a ghastly game of bowls. And I had an idea that a false step might have destroyed the balance of the structure behind, which our musician had concealed. This rumor seemed to be confirmed when I saw a shadow suddenly glide across the scarcity wall. I ran up. The shadow had already pushed open the door and entered the church. But I was quicker than the shadow and caught hold of a corner of its cloak. At that moment, we were just in front of the high altar, and the moonbeams fell straight upon us through the stained glass windows of the apse. As I did not let go of the cloak, the shadow turned around, and I saw a terrible death's head, which darted a look at me from a pair of scorching eyes. I felt as if I were face to face with Satan, and in the presence of this unearthly apparition, my heart gave way, my courage failed me, and I remember nothing more until I recovered consciousness at the setting sun. Chapter 6. A Visit to Box 5. We left Mr. Furman, Richard, and Monsieur Armand Moncharming at the moment when they were deciding to look into the little matter of Box 5, leaving behind them the broad staircase which leads from the lobby outside to the manager's office to the stage and its dependencies. They crossed the stage, went out by the subscriber's door, and re-entered the house through the first little passage on the left. Then they made their way through the front rows of stalls and looked at Box 5 on the grand tier. They could not see it well because it was half in darkness and because great covers were flung over the red velvet of the ledges of all the boxes. They were almost alone in the huge, gloomy house, and a great silence surrounded them. It was the time when most of the stagehands go out for a drink. The staff had left the boards for the moment, leaving a scene half set, a few rays of light, a wan, sinister light that seemed to have been stolen from an expiring